from Tony Petiti. Also, obviously, at the very end of our show, we talked a little Brett Bielema. Lincoln Riley was pretty interesting yesterday, just from the standpoint of with Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal. I don't know. I'll admit I don't have a pulse of the Southern California fan base. It feels like to me. This is just me, so I could be wrong. It feels like to me as if you kind of don't harass as their head coach. If you don't overdo it, flaunt it, and kind of stay out of the way, they'll give you as much time as maybe necessary. Lane Kiffin was loud, boisterous. Mm-hmm. He was Lane Kiffin. And so when it didn't work, they were like, that's plenty. Well, that's good enough from you. You get the heck on out of here. Matter of fact, don't even come back to the football facility. Here's the tarmac at the airport. You just go on and stay right here.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is Lincoln Riley's not been bad. There actually is a misconception that Lincoln Riley has been like 7-6, 7-6, 8-4. He's actually been pretty good, but that's not why they hired him.
No.
It's kind of like Lane Kiffin now at LSU.
Sure, you were hired to, A, make the playoff, and B, compete for national championships. And you can go back to Lincoln Riley's time in Oklahoma. And, yes, he took over for Bob Stoops. So you can make the argument that he just kind of kept the train on the tracks and, made the playoff, won multiple Heisman trophies with different quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff. So I don't deny that Lincoln Riley is a good coach, but he's not broken through to being, like, elite yet, right? And the hire at Southern California, yes, that was when they were in the Pac-12. So the path to a playoff was maybe a little bit easier at that point in time. He was brought in to compete with the Ohio States, the Oregons, and stuff like that. And he's not there yet. And that's why this year is pivotal. And when you look at hot seat list and all that kind of stuff, his name comes up quite a bit because, you're not doing terrible, but you're not doing what we hired you to do.
Right. Yeah, his 4-year total there, 11-3, 8-5, 7-6, 9-4. He's got a winning record in as a conference coach in the Big Ten. The last 2 years, he's 11-6. And last year they went 9-4, lost in the Alamo Bowl. But yeah, I think they expect more. But it was kind of interesting hearing from him. We'll get to that today. Also, we'll get to a few other things. I didn't know this, Tyler, and this is a little bit more in my window than yours, but that prior to the start of the SEC network, South Carolina nearly had Paul Feinbaum fired. And there was an article in Yahoo Sports about this that popped up, I guess yesterday, but I didn't see it till yesterday. It might have been over the weekend.
It was a fascinating read when you sent it to me because I had no idea either. But yeah, the Feinbaum era on TV at least was almost over before it began, and well, Carolina and Steve Spurrier had a lot to do with that.
803-404-6100. If you hear anything this afternoon you want to weigh in on, a couple of y'all on Big George. Jeff says, I got to meet George at practice when I was a kid. So I got to meet him. He have his autographed and an old Southern football magazine from it. As long as you saw him sign it, because now there's a good story out there about fake autographs. If you haven't heard it, I'll have to explain it to you, between Ray Liotta and Rich Eisen. Have you heard this?
I have not.
We can play the audio, but it doesn't. It's a little different. I'll see if I can get the audio, but yeah, I'll give you that story. And then another texter says, I love George. I was at the game in Georgia and have had my picture taken with him several times. Last time he offered to trade his Heisman for the lady I was with. Yeah, well, that's George's a jokester, I think. 803-404.
Well, did you entertain the offer is the better question.
Yeah. Did your young lady think that it was an inner fun?
Babe, it's the Heisman Trophy. I'm sorry.
But anyway, we'll get to that and get to more. We'll talk some South Carolina football as well. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years, being there for you and your family, for me, my family, for you, your business. They've been there for everybody. Whether it's your home or your business, Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you. They think about your roof 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're always thinking about it. And I know darn well you aren't. I know you're thinking about other things. School's starting back up. Football season's around the corner. Maybe you've got Little League, T-ball, Pee Wee football, something you got to get the kids for. So you are not thinking about your roof, but Mid-State is. That's why they've been the leader in the roofing and in waterproofing industry for over 30 years. So give them a phone call. Line up a maintenance contract, and then you don't even have to think about your roof. 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. Call Mid-State Roofing today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
All right, welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave on your Wednesday here on the game. Believe Bill is trying to go for the high score on pinball out there, as we're, again, 38 days away from kickoff. South Carolina, Kent State. Again, we're wrapping up the month of July. Tomorrow we'll be out at Birdies with Beamer, by the way. Be out there from 12 to 6. Beamer Speaks 4:15. We'll try and pull some coaches in as well as we're hanging out there tomorrow afternoon. Did you get the high score?
Sorry.
We have a pinball machine
Didn't
for
know
those
we were.
that
Well, I was doing
don't.
that and talking about. I was talking about longevity here at the station and going over. Somebody was out there. We were talking about people that have not been here the longest, but 10 years, and I'm one of those people.
You're number 3, but Dave, Jay, and then you, right?
I think Jen.
That's right, Jen as well.
And
Okay.
we were talking about, and then Josh, what'd you call him, Dreamy Josh?
Yeah.
Our sales guys, I think number 5. So yeah, I think I'm number 4. I think Jay's Dave. You and Jay started when the station opened. Is that right? The first day we went live.
Yeah, but Jay was here before that,
Okay. All right.
and I started 6 months before that.
Okay. But in terms of there wasn't a. What was he doing before 107.5 though?
Jay?
Yeah,
I don't know.
because if we're
don't
talking about
know.
in terms of this specific station when it
so
went
he was-
live, you guys were both here, right?
Yeah, oh, well, he had, we had the AM station. Remember the AM station?
Was not here. I don't know.
I
Anyway, they did a sports talk show on that station, and he did stuff on our sister station, B106.
gotcha. Yeah. No, I was. I'm sorry. And then I was playing pinball. But yeah, I got into a full blown conversation about longevity here. Yeah, 10 years. 10 years for me. And then you're right, Jay, David. I believe Jen started after y'all. Is that right? Jen wasn't long after y'all.
Jen was here before I got here. Then she left for a short while, and then she came back.
Well, yeah, that's a break in action. Doesn't count. So, all right. 803-404-6100. Always appreciate y'all listening and joining and being a part of the program. Yesterday, we got into a little bit of the experience. Dave, we're going to go back. This is going to be cut number 3 from last Wednesday's sheet. Cut number 3 from last Wednesday. It'll be Shane Beamer, who, again, talked on Tuesday. But it's cut number 3. Just let me know when you have it.
Wouldn't be cut number 3.
Tyler has it written down as cut 3.
Okay. What media day is this? So yeah, this would be SEC Media Day number 2.
2.
That's
Not-
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
The first,
either
cut 3 is
the
going.
day that Beamer's stuff is on.
Yeah.
So they'd be cut. It wouldn't be cut 3 because he wasn't that high up. What list are you looking at? Show me your list. Do you have the
I
list?
don't have it. I'm
Okay.
going off of what you put down.
Okay.
What is it?
Oh, are you talking about the maturity thing? That was from yesterday.
Oh, you just
That was
updated
something
it.
that I didn't get last week. So yesterday's list, cut number 3, Dave. Sorry.
Okay.
Pulling the strings
Oh,
behind
all right.
behind the curtain here.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, cut 3.
That's
I
my.
don't think that's correct either. It says breakaway.
From yesterday. You're looking at
yesterday's
today.
says- Oh, there it is.
There it is. There we go.
All right.
All right.
Let me start all over.
We
Hold
got
on.
to it.
Shane Beamer talking about maturity. We're going to get to this. Maturity. All right. Here he is, Shane Beamer. This is where we're going with all of this. Here's Shane Beamer.
No, not really. I mean, I think with this group, Rick, they've been a very mature group since they came back in January. There's a lot of, older guys on our team that have been around and they know what they want to get done. They've been very intentional about their work since January, and for us, it's just continuing to work and stack days and just keep trying to get better and better each day. But like the way that this group is working and proud of where they are right now.
We talked about experience yesterday and the playing of it. I'm fascinated to see how this does play out from, as Shane Beamer just talked about, a maturity standpoint, because we laughed, right? We didn't make fun of him, but we laughed. Demetrius Knight had a minivan. I don't know what he had, but
Well, he had a couple kids. He probably needed a minivan.
He had a minivan, and he's married. He was married, and so forth and so on. And we talked about his maturity, and then we talked about this particular linebacking group in 2023 or 2024, and Debo Williams, like, you didn't make jokes around him. He would just stare you down, like,
Yeah, he was as serious could be.
very mature, very, very, and there is a difference in that, and then being a veteran and not being mature, right?
Sure.
Like Jameis Winston could have been a junior and somewhat of a veteran, and I know, but Nobody, as a matter of fact, today would say Jameis Winston is mature.
Yeah, even at 30, whatever years old, still probably not the most mature guy. Yeah, though he's I guess he's done playing now, right? No, he's still with
You
the
said
Giants.
he's with the Giants.
Yeah, he's still with the Giants.
Although he's messing up. His career's doing what he did this summer, and
He's got a very promising media career ahead of him.
as long as he doesn't go down the dressing path of Cam Newton, he's good.
His big stupid hats.
Yeah, but I do wonder with this team, because you hear Shane saying they know what they need to do. They're in there. They're getting it done, and that's great. That's great. I do question again, and it's pointless questioning it now. It's a year later, and the season was what it was 4-8. I did question what the work ethic was, and you can say, we can say, well, it was fine. You know this, Tyler. When you play in the SEC, there's a work ethic that's fine.
Yep.
You go work out in the mornings. You work out when you're designated to, and that's it.
Yep.
Maybe you do a thing here or a thing there during the week. To play in this conference, play in most college conferences, not just the SEC, but to play in this conference, you have to do the extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go play in the NFL, you got to do the extra stuff. And we'll see if this team has done that, because that was something I really questioned last year. What happened to Mazeo Bennett? Did he not do the extra stuff? How did he disappear? We now know that Josiah Thompson was playing with some form of an injury, but I question that because of the way, for us not knowing last year, the way he played.
Yeah.
Lenore Sellers. I think Lenore Sellers is a great kid. I don't question what kind of character he has. I did wonder if the hype got to him and maybe some of the effort that he should have given went elsewhere and not into improving his footwork. Steven Garcia was notorious for going out there and working, but maybe not doing it with his shoes on, which drove Steve Spurrier crazy.
Yeah, and look, none of those guys are going to admit, like, hey, I didn't work hard enough in the offseason last year, and that's why we went 4-8. But there is something about reading your own press clippings, right? When you're coming off of a 9-win season and, being on the playoff bubble and all that kind of stuff, where everybody spent the entire offseason last year praising you. Yeah, you're right. Maybe if you are Mazeo Bennett or Lenore Sellers, maybe you didn't take that extra rep or didn't do those extra things that you'd done going into the prior season, saying, hey, we're good. I got it covered. We're in a good place right now. We're just going to replicate what we did with a year ago. And we'll see, we'll see if that changes this offseason or if the mindset changes at all. But those are things that are very real. Again, we're talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids now, right? They don't have the full scope of everything that, more experienced guys or older guys would have. So those kind of things can go to your head a little bit in terms of maybe not putting in the most effort, and that can, cause you to suffer on the field.
Well, and I'm going to use Lenoris as an example just because quarterback is face of the program, but I don't necessarily, and I'm not trying to take shots at him. But, to my knowledge, and Lenore Sellers knows this better, but this is from interviews and from kind of knowing, Lenore Sellers had never really faced adversity, right?
Right.
He had never,
he's a winner.
You even come to college, and your first year you don't play, so that's not really facing adversity when you go 5-7. You step in, and just like high school where you won back-to-back state championships, you go 9-4, and you are the national darling, and you get everything. You're right. That causes things, and in today's world of college football, where every time you turn around, we're signing autographs. Kids are somewhere signing autographs. Now they're getting paid to sign autographs. Now they're getting paid to make appearances. The fine line between focusing on your football and focusing on almost your financial life, it's very fine, because it's very easy to get wrapped up in, I got to go to nothing to. I'm just thinking was it Midas a couple weeks ago? I think had them out for a signature thing. And it's easy. Hey, I'm going to go make $500 today. I don't need to put in the extra time at the gym, or
Probably
I don't
more than $500.
Well,
but yeah,
whatever it is. I don't want to be sweaty and smelly. Well, what happens if a good-looking girl walks in? Or I better shower and cut off my workout 15-20. It's just the line is so fine now, and that's the difference between, honestly. Go back to last year. 6 games where you're in the game in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying it's feasible that South going to go 6-0, but you can point to each game and go 3 or 4 plays over the final 15, 20 minutes of the game where you can go, realistically, they could have been 10-4, or whatever it would have been, or 10,
10-2.
Well, 10-2, yeah. as opposed to 4. I mean, it wasn't like they were getting drilled in every game.
Sure, and that goes back to the thing that we're sick of hearing Beamer talk about, but he's right that, hey, they weren't that far off. Like, the margins are pretty thin. How do you close those gaps? Well, maybe it is those specific guys, not trying to pick on Sellers and stuff like that, but maybe it was those guys kind of refocusing themselves this offseason where, hey, they got to understand, hey, I got to put more work in because I took a step back last year.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in if you want to do so. We'll get into some of the Big Ten comments from yesterday. Tony Petitti talking, and we'll let you hear some of that. You're listening to the Halftime Show. is. Ooh, wow. That was a poor start. It is. Sound like a 15-year-old boy. It is 12:35 on your Wednesday. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, as I try to sound more like an adult and less, again, like a 15-year-old boy. Now, that sounds like Mickey Mouse coming back. 803-404-6100 if you hear something that you want to weigh in. Again, happy George Rogers Day to you. What does that mean? Well, it's 38 days away from the start of the South Carolina football season. One of the greatest and best to ever do it, George Rogers. And we'll get you another clip coming out of that. Coming back from that when we are talking about that when we come back in the next segment. But right now, going back to yesterday, Tony Petitti, Big Ten commissioner. First time I'd ever seen Tony Petitti yesterday.
Really? First time ever? You didn't know what he looked like?
Didn't know what he looked like. No real reason to.
Oh, okay.
No real reason. I tell you what, the Big Ten product, the Big Ten network product, and the SEC network product are wildly different. Like, it feels like there's a lot of course, ESPN's behind the SEC network, so it feels more like an ESPN, type setup. Big Ten product just, I don't know, something about it feels cheap, knockoff. Just throw some guys out there. Jared DiNardo sitting on stage. I don't know if you remember Jared DiNardo, failure at Vanderbilt, not particularly good at Indiana. Failure at Indiana, quite frankly. But it just feels, something about watching the Big Ten Network, you just like, this is second rate.
Let me ask you this question. How often do you watch the Big Ten Network?
That's where I was going also with that. And Tony Petitti, I don't watch a whole lot of it.
I mean, if there's a game on, Indiana's playing Illinois or something like that, and you want to watch it, sure. But because we'll keep the SEC network on in here sometimes to not just watch old games, but Feinbaum or whatever. So, there's interesting things on the network that people are aware of, and I don't know if the Big Ten has their version of Paul Feinbaum, but he's certainly not on the Big Ten network. So it's more kind of a place for replays of old games. I don't even know if they have a daily show on there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't gotten into the... Now, I will say, they actually do something, and I think the SEC's done it from time to time, the SEC network, but the Big Ten network will show a full game, but they cut it down where it's just a play.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
I've seen that, which I do like.
Yeah, it's literally the guy gets tackled, there's a 1 or 2 second, but guy's getting up, and then it's right back. Yep. And it's not huddle, and it's not analyst, it's just right into the next play, and they can condense it into an hour. Matter of fact, kind of over the weekend, they were showing just a bunch of Rose Bowls, and it was really cool. One of them was it made real nostalgic, took me back. I want to say it was the 95. It was the 95 Rose Bowl. Kajana Carter and Kerry Collins and all them, Penn State, when Penn State won to share the national title against the lovely, actual green, ugly green and yellow Oregon uniforms.
Before the Nike investment.
Yeah. And it was, and I remembered that game. That was one of the first games I remember.
It's when they had the Donald Duck on the helmet, right?
Yeah,
or on the shoulder.
Something, yeah. And I don't remember if that was Akil Smith or not as the quarterback. But anyway, there was that, because I can't remember who, 95, I think Nebraska and Penn State split the title, because obviously back then the Big Ten, you had to go to the Rose Bowl and so forth and so on. Anyway, but first day watching. But a lot of the discussion yesterday was on the CFP expansion. And a little bit of it centered around job security for coaches. But let's hear, this is cut number one, Dave. This is cut number one from today's clip. CFP expansion conversations up at the Big Ten.
Yeah, the first thing I'll say about, working with the SEC on the playoff and working with Greg specifically, I've never heard him say that he won't do the work and consider 24. He's been public about certain preferences he has, but he's committed himself to doing the work around all formats. And we've done the same thing. We have strong opinions about where the right path is. I think there's been an evolution since we were here last year about how people feel about 24 at this point, and we've made adjustments in our league. We were focused on automatic qualifiers. We're not focused on that anymore. We're looking at, the committee picking the field at 24. We feel that ultimately will still unlock the power of scheduling that we want. So we work every day with it. I think the path is, you've got to be able to do this in a way that allows you to not play championship games. There's obviously significant economic value in our championship games across the P4, and so we've got to understand where that is. And if we can find the value, then I think it just changes the tone of the conversations. But it's been completely collaborative, and even though the memo gives the SEC and the Big Ten more, the operating decision-making in this process, we've really included, on a daily basis, our colleagues in the ACC, the Big 12, and everybody else in the CFP room. We're trying to do this together. I think there's been a lot of movement among coaches and ADs around the country that 24 is the right number, but we've got to see if it has the right value, and we got to understand that process and how we schedule it and when.
I did like how he tossed in there, like, oh yeah, we let the Big 12 and the ACC kind of, they can kind of talk with us if they want. We're not going to listen, but yeah.
Well, it's the equivalent of the kids in the backseat of the car.
Yeah.
Like, all right, kids, what do you want to eat? McDonald's, Burger King. Yeah, we're not going there. We got food at home. It's like, yeah, we took their input, but we ultimately decided as mom and dad what we were going to do.
What did you take away from that? Obviously, very respectful of the SEC, very respectful of Greg Sankey, but at the same time, kind of saying, hey, this is what we want. This is why. He didn't really go into the why of it, but
sure. And look, both sides understand each other, right? I think we like to envision that Petitti and Sankey get in a room and they're just screaming at each other and throwing furniture and all this kind of stuff. These are cordial conversations, and I think both conferences, when we listened to Sankey talk last week and Petitti talk yesterday, they understand where both sides are coming from. We understand why the Big Ten wants an expanded playoff with more access, and we understand why the SEC wants to limit it to no more than 16 and keep the access a little bit more limited, and all that kind of stuff. And they're at an impasse right now. When that solution comes, I don't know. The Big Ten did say they'd be open to going to 16 in the meantime if that meant 24 was coming down the road, but the SEC is not willing to budge on that. So again, we're still kind of butting heads right now in terms of what the ultimate decision is going to be. And if nothing happens, we just kind of stay where we're at 12, which the SEC again would kind of be more in line with than wanting to expand to 24.
Let's hear. This is going to be clip number 2, and I thought this was an interesting comment, and I couldn't agree more. I'm not asking for some kind of generic SEC, ACC, Big Ten challenge. SEC Big Ten challenge on a weekly year, on a yearly basis like we have with basketball. But I would like to see when we get Oklahoma and Michigan, that's really cool. Texas, Ohio State, that's really, really cool. Obviously, we're not going to ever hopefully we'll come back to the days of South Carolina playing fun non-conference games. But I'd love to see South Carolina play a Wisconsin or, something of that kind of stature. I've seen enough of Illinois, and Minnesota doesn't really do anything for me. But, a South Carolina Penn State game would be a lot of fun. But this is Petitti yesterday talking about how he wishes the Big Ten and the SEC played each other more.
Well, I'll take it from a couple of things. I'm going to start with our fans. Our fans, I think the SEC fans, they really like the rivalry. I think, it would be great if we played each other more. I think that's, from the fan perspective, having a rivalry with the Big Ten and the SEC is a great thing, right? You see the games when we play them, when we play them in the CFP, when we play them in the regular season, which isn't that often right now. But, everybody's already pointing to Ohio State going down to Austin to play, and Oklahoma going to Michigan. We've got others. So I think on that side of it, from the fans' point of view, it couldn't be better. That's a great thing to have. Fans really want to compete. They want to talk about which league is better. Great. Let's just keep doing that. On the work side of it, we're taking on some of the most complicated things that have happened in the space, and we're doing it together every single day. I literally have talked to Greg Sankey more than 5 times already this morning about the bill. And that goes on lots of issues. At the end of the day, we very early in the job when we first started to get to know each other, it was like, hey, we're not always going to agree, but we're going to do it in a way where we're transparent and we're respectful, and we'll just fight hard for our leagues and go from there. So I would say, I think people point to the playoff and try to make it something bigger than it is. They're doing what they think is best, and we're doing what we think is best, and we'll see where it evolves to over time. I don't think there's that much daylight at the end of the day. But to the heart of your question, the fans love the rivalry. We want to double down on that because it's the right thing for all of our sports to play those games. And then secondly, I think as a working partner, I can tell you, I don't think it could be much better, to be honest with you.
Of course, we kind of aren't going to get that now for a while because the SEC is backing out of games. We'll finish that thought and wrap up our number 1 when we come back. You're listening to The Halftime Show. All right, rolling
Like
along.
a freight train with no brakes, leaving defenders sprawled in his wake. In 1980, Rogers rushed for a staggering 1,781 yards, leading the nation and carrying the Gamecocks to one of their finest seasons. His blend of size, speed, and toughness turned every handoff into a highlight reel, earning him the Heisman Trophy, the first and only in South Carolina's history. Rogers set school records that still stand tall today, solidifying his place as a legend. George Rogers wasn't just a Gamecock, he was South Carolina football.
There you go. George Rogers Day, everybody. 38 days until the start of the Gamecock football season. A nooner.
12:45
Close enough.
in the noon hour.
In the noon hour. Maybe a little bit hotter at 12:45 than at noon.
Maybe by a degree or two, sure. You know what? Maybe we'll get lucky and there'll be clouds that day. Probably not, but wishful thinking.
Okay. All right. Yep. Maybe. We'll see. At 12:45, Kent State. So actually, as we sit here, it's 12:51 now. So 38 days from now will just be the kickoff of just occurred, I assume.
Yeah, well, and they say 12:45. That really means a couple minutes later.
Yeah,
Because
so-
here's the thing: in college football, it's so funny. Like watching the World Cup over the course of the past couple months. Like when they say a game starts at 3, guess what? That game starts at 3. College football, 12 o'clock kicks, really like 12:02.
Right.
7:30 kicks, really like 7:40 or 7:45. So yeah, 12:45 is probably gonna be like 12:50.
There you go. So,
It's currently 90 degrees and feels like 94.
very nice.
I can see the sunshine out the window, and I'm sure I'll feel it when I go to leave.
Very, 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 very nice. Very nice. All right. So that's coming up 38 days. But we'll talk more about George Rogers. Play a little some more clips from him. Is arguably the greatest Gamecock to ever do it. Arguably, I think most. I put out that graphic. 4th and 4 from the 4. You got to score a touchdown to win the ball game. Down 4. 4th and 4 from the 4. Down 4. You got to score a touchdown on the final play of the game. Who do you give it to? Rogers, Lattimore. I threw Mike Davis, and Mike Davis is so underappreciated. A while back, I put those three, and then Brandon Bennett. Who do you give it to? And I think it was Rogers that won that little Twitter poll that I put out.
Is it even arguable though that he's the greatest? Like I know Clowney was a freak and the most sought after player at his time in college football, but like, I mean, what George Rogers was doing back then en route to winning the Heisman Trophy, 22 straight games to close his career over 100 yards, like, and the hardware to back it up. I think that kind of makes him undeniable, right?
I think he goes down as the greatest. You talk the greatest player regardless of position.
Yeah, Carolina.
And we'll talk about Clowney in a little while because I'd never heard the story. But I think you're right. That's probably where I will say for me personally, it's hard to specifically say, yes, George Rogers, because I never saw him play.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like today I'm watching video clips of him and everything, and I can't relate back to that, if that makes sense. I can see the clips, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. But it doesn't translate to me. I think what I think is that most would look at Marcus Lattimore and say, if not for the injuries, he would be the best. You know, there's a general consensus that if not for the injuries, Lattimore probably gets a Heisman. Probably.
Fair.
Because Spurrier
He was great.
Spurrier was clearly not worried about his carry amount, his carry total. Spurrier said, Spurrier basically was like, I'm not coaching you in the NFL, so if you're out of gas by the time you get there, that one's on you, not on me. But obviously what happened with Marcus is it will always be tragic and unfortunate because we don't know what he would have ended up being. I'd have to go back and look. I've never thought to look this up, where he stood when he got injured against Mississippi State his sophomore year in terms of yardage and all of that. Exactly what he was at. Like if he was at 600 yards, 700, if he was heading for another 1,000-yard season.
So in you said sophomore year?
Sophomore year is when he got.
Yeah, he had 818 yards in 7 games, so he was well on his way to well over 1,000.
Exactly.
By that point in time.
So yes, and how much you're looking at? How many receiving yards too? Because they had really started to throw the screen pass.
That year he only had 182.
Oh, okay.
On 19 receptions. But again, that was only halfway through the year, so he was on pace to about match what he did his freshman year in terms of receiving.
182?
Yeah, because his freshman year was 412 with 10 more receptions. So he was on pace to do about the same receiving-wise.
I'm trying to think. Did Harbor had 500 yards receiving last year?
I
think so.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It would have eclipsed him in catches. Anyway, we'll finish talking about the Big Ten, but I'm going to tie it back into coaches' security and a college football playoff. Why going to a 2014 playoff is awful for college football coaches' job security. Maybe we'll like it, though. We'll talk about it.
All right, here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. Tell you about them all the time, but I'll remind you once again, you always need to be on the lookout. Things around your home that are a little bit off. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in and above windows and door frames, doors and windows that might be sticky, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. And that's where our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to cantycanfixit.com. Schedule your appointment with Canty Foundation Specialists, and they'll send a pro out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Do not hesitate. Those foundation issues will only continue to get worse if you do not act right away. Go online to cantycanfixit.com. Let our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists help you out with your home's foundation needs.
It is 1 o'clock on George Rogers Day. 38 days till the start of college football season as we kind of honor Big George. A texter weighs in. And again, 1980, I wasn't born yet, and so I'm not completely familiar with everything. But it says, guys, another impressive thing about George Rogers was the fact that Jim Carlin, as soon as George would get 100 yards in a game, and this is especially happened his senior year, and for his Heisman campaign, Carlin would pull him the rest of the game in order to rest him and ensure they didn't get hurt or put his chances for the Heisman in jeopardy. During that time, hitting the 100-yard mark in X number of games was a very important factor in who was going to win the Heisman Trophy. If it wasn't for that fact, there's no telling how many total yards George could have gotten, especially in a senior season.
Yeah, because it was 22 straight games. I think 1,700 yards in the last year, and make the argument it probably could have touched 2,000 maybe.
You're right. 803-404-6100 as we draw nearer and nearer. And again, as Tyler mentioned, tomorrow we will be out at Cobblestone Park. Cobblestone Farms is the former neighborhood I used to live in Lexington. Cobblestone Park for the Birdies with Beamer golf tournament, in which hopefully we'll have a few coaches on during our time. They're going to tee off at noon. For some of the coaches that don't play, we may be able to get them. And then Shane Beamer will be live tomorrow. Set your calendars accordingly. He will hold a press conference tomorrow at 4:15, and we'll carry that for you right here at 107.5 The Game. So tomorrow, whether you're getting in the car early or planning to stay a few minutes late, Shane Beamer will address the media really for the final time before the start of preseason camp.
Yep.
What does he say? What does he break? Not really anything. I think tomorrow's always more interesting because whether it's our show or Jay and Terry, who will be out there as well, we get to talk to the assistant coaches.
Right.
And so, if we catch up with Kendall Briles, we catch up with Deion Barnes, and we catch up with Stan Drayton, just hearing what their thoughts are from the summer on their particular positions, or obviously offensive coordinator, and what the plans are for the fall camp to get them ready for the season. So we'll see how much of that we can get. Make sure you're tuned in tomorrow, especially from 12 to 6, as we'll be out at Cobblestone Golf Club out in Blythewood for the Birdies with Beamer golf tournament. Look forward to that. 803-404-6100. So, Tyler, we've listened to a couple cuts. Let me finish this thought and then go into the job security. I do wish, and if you want to go to a Big Ten SEC challenge, fine, where, much like basketball, the conferences get together and go, okay, Georgia's the top team here, Ohio State's the top team, we're going to have them play in the regular season. Number 2, or last year, number 2 is this, number 2 is that. Then for South Carolina, you probably start end up matched up with Minnesota or Northwestern, or who else? Purdue. None of those sound particularly exciting.
I think Purdue's maybe a little too low on the rung there. They're kind of thought of as the worst team in the Big Ten right now. But you're right. Whoever is comparable, right? And I do wish there be a way, because that's how the NFL does their scheduling model, where you have, all right, the NFC South's going to take on the AFC East this year, or excuse me, they'll take on their set division from the other side of the league, and then they'll play the corresponding teams from other divisions. So you play if you're third in the NFC South, you'll play the third best team from last year in the NFC North or something along those lines. And I wish we could line that stuff up with college football. Obviously, scheduling is done years and years in advance now, and there's no current incentive to play those, harder non-conference games. The Big Ten doesn't even require it, by the way, so their teams really don't have to do it. But yeah, it'd be great. Would we do it for conference superiority every single year? I don't know, but I think it'd be fun to see teams kind of more on your level from those other conferences on your schedule a lot, which unfortunately we don't have right now.
If I'm doing the math, now remember the Big Ten is not filled with 10 teams, nor is it filled with 16.
Numbers don't mean anything.
They're irrelevant. If I'm doing the math right on this, if you were to say, all right, we're going to match up so-and-so against so-and-so against so-and-so, South Carolina would likely be getting a game against, I believe, either Penn State, if you were to go from last year's schedule. Well, it depends on what they do, overall record or conference record. Penn State, UCLA, or Northwestern is about where I'd be putting South Carolina.
Okay.
On that, and
all those could be fun games.
Those would be, yeah. I would love to. If you haven't seen it, go to social media or Google Northwestern's new football.
Oh, it's nice.
Football stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Now,
I saw it and I was like, this is AI generated. It was AI generated, but it's going to be real. Like, that's what they're building.
Yeah, I did think their little makeshift stadium by the lake was pretty cool.
I loved it.
But their new, basically, they rebuilt Ryan Field.
Right.
It looks really cool.
If you haven't seen it, it's go Google it. If South Carolina got Northwestern, I know you'd be like, but a little trip to Chicago, a little game against Northwestern at that stadium might be really, really cool. 803-404-6100. So the Big Ten yesterday, a lot of discussion about going to the 2014 playoff, why they think it is. Here's my so I started thinking about this, and I get coaches are looking at the very positive side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get my team in. And then once we're in, I can tell hey, we got in the playoff.
Yeah.
We got in the playoff. Now, by the way, let's ignore the fact that probably 16 through 24, and let's just start with there, has almost zero chance of winning a national championship.
Yeah, you're happy to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Could there be an upset? Sure. But we're not banking on, hey, man, the 17th best team is probably going to go on a deep run. More likely than not, no.
But now I think if you're a coach and you go 4 years at almost any program without making a playoff, you're done. There's no like, well, he had 2 8-4 season. Now 8-4 probably gets you in, but well, he had 2 like 2014 playoff. You better make it. Any school, any Power Four school, better make it once every 4 years. And if you don't, you're done. And it might even be 3 years. Like, I think actually the scrutiny of coaches, if there's a 2014 playoff, grows so exponentially because you can't get into that size playoff that job security becomes even less it becomes less stable because you didn't get into a huge playoff within 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, there are, I believe, 69 Power 4.
68, I think.
68, 69 Power 4. Yeah, that's right, because ACC has an odd number. 68 Power 4 schools, counting Notre Dame, and every single, even down to the Purdue's of the world, which aren't doing well right now, Boston College, teams like that, every school can look at that and say, all right, we should, because basically it's being ranked, right?
Right.
Every school can go into any season saying, okay, we feel like we can do enough to get ourselves ranked at some point, which is basically what you're having to do to be in this college ball playoff. Can you get yourself inside that top 24? And you're right, even if it's a program that has no history whatsoever. You know, Indiana prior to Cignetti being there in a 2014 playoff era, they'd look at that and say, okay, we got to find a way to be good enough to at least get into this dance. Now, again, that's more of a long-term thing. I think in the short term, kind of going back to what we were talking about with Brett Bielema and his comments about the SEC being stuck in 2005, because for a guy like Bielema, he knows, hey, if I'm winning eight-ish games at Illinois in a 2014 playoff, I'm probably in more often than not, which is a feasible goal for him and would obviously get him incentives and bonuses and all that kind of stuff. Now, expectations change as time goes along. If you start making it and aren't winning those games, then they're going to expect more out of you. But in the short term, yeah, he looks at that and says, you know what? I can make that more often than not, 3 out of 5 years, that kind of stuff, and that helps me out personally.
And then I would wonder what the kind of arrangement is. If you go to 3 straight playoffs, but you're eliminated in the first round, are people like, well, hey, he went to 3 straight playoffs, he's getting us there. Or they go, well, it's not hard to get to the playoff. What does it matter anymore? You can't get past the first round. We got to find a coach that can take us to the next level and get past the first round. I don't think it helps coaches to go to a 2014 playoff because, again, you look last year, according to the rankings, the 24th ranked team in the college football play rankings the 23rd. 24 was James Madison. But the 23rd ranked team was Iowa at 8-4. Iowa didn't have a chance of winning the national championship game. All right, they didn't have a chance. But the bottom line is, like, if you're a coach now and you make 3 college football playoffs, I think you're right. In the short term, people are like, wow, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. In the long term, they're like, well, did you advance? How far did you advance? What did you do? Oh, you just made it to you just basically were ranked at the end of the year. Now we're not settling for that. You got to go further.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think depending on what school you're at, those expectations and length of years are different. If you're going to Ohio State and you're only making the playoffs and getting bounced in the first round, yeah, they'll spit you out in about 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Carolina, if you're going to the playoffs 3 out of 5 years, but you're not advancing past the first round, we'll give you a longer runway because, again, this is not a program that has had that same level of success and expectation for Ohio State. But you're right. As time goes along, everybody's expectations will shift to saying, hey, we should all be in this thing. Why aren't you making it in if you're a coach that misses it, say, 3 years in a row?
Yeah, I think I almost wonder if it would be the 3-year mark where ADs and fan bases are like, hey, transfer portal, you can build this team in a year. You can't get into the college football playoff in 3 years. Sorry, you're out on your keister. Go find something else to do. I hear insurance salesmen are doing really, really well these days. So yeah, that's where I wonder if coaches, because look, right now, Shane Beamer can still say, well, it's a 12-team playoff. We got really close. We got really, really close, and that's hard. When it was a 4-team whatever playoff, it was almost impossible to make it in.
Sure.
And so therefore, coaches that were finishing in the top 10 but not quite making the college football playoff, they're being loved. They're like, oh man, we're top 10 finish, another top 10 finish. No. Now it'll be very simply, you either get to the playoff or you can't hack it here.
Well, and with the 4-team playoff, at least early on, there was still prestige to making the big bowl games too. It's like, all right, we didn't make the playoff this year, but man, we're going to the Sugar Bowl. We're going to the Fiesta Bowl. Even though it's not in the playoff rotation this year, that's still a big deal. Even making like the Citrus Bowl and the Outback Bowl, there was still prestige to that. Now, and good or bad, all of college football is about the playoff now. We're talking about the playoff year round. Week number 1, if there's a major power team that loses a game, we're going to talk about, well, there goes their playoff chances or how that affects their playoff chances. It's all about the playoff now. And that becomes even more apparent if you expand to 24 in the next couple of years. Literally everything's about the playoff. You could care less if you're making the ReliaQuest Bowl, the Music City Bowl, or whatever it may be. It's all about making the playoff. And if you got in, you had a good season. If you didn't, you had a bad season.
803-404-6100. Coming up at 1:30 today, Doug Turnbull joins us. Our usual Thursday segment, we're going to move to Wednesday. Our NASCAR Survivor Challenge due to being out at Cobblestone Golf Club tomorrow. So we're going to do that coming up. But when we come back, we'll get into these jersey patches and revenue. That's pretty important right now. A couple deals being signed over the last few days. We'll talk about it. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Make money. Get money. The name of the game in college athletics these days. So how are you going to do it? What are you going to do? You're going to have concerts at your stadium? Grab revenue from that? You're going to sell extra, you're going to sell more tickets, higher prices on tickets? Parking goes up? Build new suites? Got to do a whole bunch of things, Tyler, and one of them, everybody's for sale. Everybody's got a number, and that includes Team's uniform, who is wide open for advertising.
That's right.
Which is what it is. Team jersey patches.
NCAA approved it this offseason, and not everybody's done it yet, but in the very near future, everybody, at least at the Power 4 level, going to have a jersey patch. And, well, yesterday we learned perhaps the two biggest price tags in the entire sport for what this value can bring.
So The Athletic has an article up on team valuations, what each team is worth, technically what they would be worth, and how much if you were to buy them, kind of like an NFL franchise. Well, I think this comes on the heels of Josh Pastner from UNLV out there basically saying, don't invest in an NFL franchise, invest in a college franchise. We have a college franchise right here.
That upset some people.
Yeah. But The Athletic has basically college football program valuations, ranking Power 4 teams by how much they'd sell for. South Carolina is number 29. South Carolina is number 29. How much it lists it at $597 million. It breaks it down how they get to that number, but I say that because, all right, how much you're worth kind of would dictate what you're able to get for your jersey patch. Ohio State, number 2 on the list, $2.3 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame, number 3 on the list, $2.1 billion. Those are the two latest. Michigan, number 4 on the list, also just selling their jersey patch, $2 billion. So you look at these numbers, and if you're thinking, 18 to 20, $36 million, so forth, so on, well, don't expect that if you're the University of South Carolina. I think you're trying at most to get 1.5 a year, maybe over 5 years.
I think you can get more than that.
Do you? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. How do you?
Well, that's the thing, is this is a brand new market that we don't know. But I can tell you one thing: what Ohio State and Notre Dame did yesterday set the ceiling for everybody. I don't know if many programs are going to be able to get more than what Notre Dame's getting, which is between 18 and 20 million. We don't know the exact number, so you're not going to get anybody probably getting north of that. But if you're South Carolina, I think being in the SEC brings a lot of value. You got to be talking somewhere, maybe not all the way to 10, but closer to that. I think if you're only getting 1 or 2 per year, that's not enough in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't know how you value that. You say 1 or 2.5 per year. Look, the 6-year deal for Notre Dame, it's a 6-year deal. That's worth $18 to $20 million. Now, I just gave you Notre Dame was, what did I say, second or third? They're third. They're third on this list. $18 to $20 million. Remember, if it's 6 years, $18 million, that's only $3 million a year.
I thought it was annually. I'm pretty sure it's annually.
Per year. I'm sorry. Okay, you're right. You're right. Okay, I didn't finish that sentence. I should have last night.
Because Notre Dame's is like $17 million per year.
Notre Dame's is against.
Ohio State's is $17 million per year.
Okay, yep. I think one of them. Maybe it was the other one I saw that was like $36 million, but that's not per year.
Yeah, it's over the life of the deal.
Okay, all right. But the bottom line is, I just don't know what you're going to get for South Carolina, and quite frankly, and I would love to know the answer to this. So Notre Dame obviously signs theirs with SoFi.
Yes.
Massive company, building, got stadium, got a stadium. South Carolina's not going to get that. That's the other part. Like, can you get a regional bank? Can you get a regional, because I'm telling you right now, if it's state, I don't know what they got for Blanchard to put the logos on the field.
Sure.
I know it's look upable. I know it's out there, but I don't know what exactly.
Could you get, we're in the building, Bank of America.
Yes.
That's a Charlotte-based company, and then maybe they want to go with the North Carolina team, but something like that, where you can get a regional type of bank or something along those lines to pay you $8 or $9 million a year, which we don't know. We're just spitballing here.
And the other part of that is, what does that particular entity value? Like, South Carolina's going to have 11 games that are on television. They're going to have one that's streaming. That's the rule of the SEC.
Right.
I think what is the streaming game this year? Is it
Towson? I think it's Towson.
Actually, I thought Towson is on a SEC. You could be right.
Or is it Kent State? It might be Kent State. One of those
I'll
two.
go back and look. But the bottom line on this is that South Carolina, what exactly is the value? Are you placing it on what television channels they are on? Like, because if they're playing 11 televised games out of, or they're playing and 7 of them are on the SEC network, that's not the same value as a Saturday night ESPN game. That's not the same value as a 3:30 ABC game. I don't know. You're right. I don't know what the number is. What I do know, and what we kind of are just discussing, is the fact that this is extra revenue that goes to revenue share or whatever you want it to go to.
This is the sustainability going forward, right? Because, you generate a portion of your own revenue that goes into rev share, but that other portion, that NIL that still exists, instead of asking, now you're not going to stop asking your fan base for money, but, you're not going to probably have to ask your fan base for $20 to $30 million every offseason to be a high-level competitor. Now you're going to rely on things like this to be consistent revenue streams from these corporations that are going to be willing to fork over $5, $8, $10 million, whatever it may be. Now, again, you're still going to get whatever you can on top of that through NIL for whatever your fan base is going to be willing to give you. But asking, big donors to write $10 million checks won't be as big of a thing going forward, I don't think, because you're going to have more consistent revenue streams from things like this.
For those wondering, again, The Athletic, the top 10 valued schools, if you were to try and purchase them, all of them are over $1 billion. I mentioned Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan are all over $2 billion. Those are the top 4. Georgia is at number 5. They're at $1.95 billion. Alabama is number 6 at $1.8 billion. Oklahoma and Southern Cal are tied at 7 at $1.6 billion. Tennessee is $1.4 billion. This, again, according to The Athletic. You can go check out the article there. And then number 10 on the list is Penn State at $1.4 billion. That leaves LSU, Florida, Oregon, Auburn, Nebraska, Washington, and Texas A&M form out the next 7 to get you 1 through 17.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. And again, there's no perfect science to this, but we understand that all those teams you read off are a certain level of brand in college football that goes along with knowing that they're going to be playing primetime games, good opportunity, especially for Ohio State and Notre Dame, to be in the playoff, to be in the national championship, winning national championships, where your jersey patch is alongside them for that entire ride. Every picture, video, highlight's going to have that featured in there for, guys winning the Heisman Trophy and things like that. So that brings with it its own level of value that unfortunately South Carolina doesn't have because they haven't had those kind of accomplishments. That being said, I still think you can get a significant amount from bank, corporation, somebody to help you foot the bill on your own. What that number is, we don't know, but I wouldn't go as low as like 1.5 to 2 million.
Yeah, I don't know, and neither of us know, and I don't think any of us know, and I'll be interested to see what Jeremiah Donati does. For those interested, Clemson checks in at 25 in terms of what The Athletic values their variation, $674 million. I was a little surprised that a school like Arkansas, Indiana, and Iowa were all ahead of Clemson and South Carolina. South Carolina, as I mentioned, is again at number 29. They're behind Minnesota. They're about $32 million behind Minnesota. Minnesota valued at $629 million. South Carolina $597 million. But that's just going by The Athletic. They kind of break it down. You can go and check out that article and see what they got there. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. It's NASCAR Survivor Challenge. We're getting closer to the end. We're getting closer to the true playoffs in Darlington on Labor Day weekend. So what is it? We're 38 days away from football, so 39 days away.
Correct.
From Labor Day weekend. But we're drawing closer and heading into the home stretch. Gunner's got the lead, but it's only by a point.
Well, we were all tied last week.
But Gunner's got the lead. We'll talk about it. We'll make some picks when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Jeff Gordon got his second career victory here in 1994. First ever Brickyard 400. Heim trying to do the same today. Here he is off of turn 4. It's Heim time in Indy. Corey Heim gonna win the Brickyard 400.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave on your Wednesday here on the game. Indeed, it was Heim time up in Indianapolis on Sunday as Corey Heim, in only his 15th career start, picks up his second career NASCAR Cup Series victory. Not even a full-time driver yet, but impressive nonetheless for the second time this year, going to victory lane in that 67 Toyota for 2311 Racing. We bring in our guy Doug Turnbull of the Performance Racing Network a day early because we're going to be out at Birdies with Beamer tomorrow. You know, Doug, we've seen a lot of great prospects come up through the ranks, and when they get the Cup Series, there's always the buzz of, man, what can this guy do right out of the gate? And we're going to see Corey Heim full-time next year in the 35, but, man, already impressing in the limited opportunities he's gotten this year in that 67 car, and now has a crown jewel win to his name too.
And he was impressive. Good afternoon to you, my friend, and to everybody listening. He was impressive without winning the San Diego Street Course of the Brickyard 400 because he was placing that car and finishing where he was supposed to be in other races, you know, and leading some laps sometimes and outrunning sometimes his teammates and things like that. But to go out and win two races in a very short time, you know, one on Father's Day in San Diego in a race that every driver wanted that one because they don't know if they're coming back, and then to win a crown jewel, out-dueling his team co-owner, Denny Hamlin, on a late restart to win it, and Hamlin's never won the Brickyard 400 to complete the crown jewel sweep at NASCAR. That just makes it doggone impressive. I'm not completely shocked that he won a race because he's very good. He won 12 races in NASCAR's AA Series, if you will, for those that don't know, the Craftsman Truck Series. He won 12, like almost half the races on that schedule last year. He has run well at Cup, so to pop off a win is not unheard of. But to pop off two of them, what the heck, right? And like that makes his stock super high. And you think about a year ago how high the stock was on current Cup Series rookie Connor Zilisch when he was running the AAA Series, if you will, the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and winning 10 races there. Well, his rookie season's been a disaster. Not all of his making, but certainly a disaster. And Corey Heim's come on a part-time schedule and has taken 2 trophies just out of nowhere. And you got to think, if you're Kyle Larson, who hasn't won in a year, all right, Christopher Bell, who hasn't won since last fall, William Byron, who hasn't won in almost a year, you got to be looking and going, dang, kid.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Doug, you do a really good job of keeping up with the drivers from the state of Georgia. With Corey Heim is from Marietta, and I remember hearing his name coming up through the late model rakes before he got into a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck and started winning pretty quickly with that a couple years ago. Again, Denny Hamlin refers to him as generational talent, and you're kind of seeing that already before he goes full-time in Cup. When did you first hear about Corey Heim around the Atlanta area, and when did you start kind of believing the hype of how good this kid could be?
I'll be honest. Look,
Jeff Gordon got his second career victory here in 19.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Hey, you know, Jeff Gordon was a hot prospect in his time, too, okay? Went on ESPN Thursday Night Thunder, no less, running dirt races some 30 years ago. Hey, so here's the deal, 30-plus years ago. I wasn't following Heim when he was running down at Echo Park Speedway, which is Atlanta Motor Speedway. I saw his name in the finishing results, but I never know the difference between somebody that's burning it up there and just burning up a bunch of money or somebody that actually is really very good. And while he needed his father and his family's backing, Corey Heim did, to do what he did, he certainly backed it up. And when he got in the Kyle Busch truck, you know, and I saw what he did in ARCA, get to the Kyle Busch truck, and immediately is competitive. You compare that to a fellow Georgian, Chandler Smith from Talking Rock, Georgia, who took a long time to finally win, and his stock was higher in the Toyota pipeline than Corey Heim's was because he was a little bit younger, right? And Heim has taken it by the horns and run with it, so to speak. So I was not early at all on the Corey Heim train, unfortunately, despite him being from Marietta, Georgia.
All right, so then let's go real quick to the stock market here. Let's talk stock market. All these young drivers, we see Denny Hamlin phasing out, Joey Logano starting to really kind of phase out, you know, the unfortunate passing of Kyle Busch. the guys I think who got us through the early part of this century are now starting to phase out. You got the new guys coming in. I'm going to offer y'all now, you can buy stock in one driver, one guy who's the next stud of NASCAR. Is it Corey Heim? Is it Connor Zilisch? You just mentioned another one, Doug, that I think one of y'all just mentioned another one that I was going to throw out there, and I've blanked on his name. You know, we're kind of doing this.
Chandler Smith, I think, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
We're doing this kind of with the PGA, where last week the young man from Auburn goes and wins, and now he's a wonder kid, and he's the next greatest Scotty. Well, who is that guy? Who is that guy in NASCAR that you're buying stock in and going 5 years from now, this guy's dominating the circuit?
Yeah, and let's not forget one that's now in his third year in the Cup Series, who's taken the zeitgeist by storm, and Carson Hocevar, and it's just won his first race.
That was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's really the three I would circle, and you're not going to be wrong on picking any of them. I think the reason. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to, pick just one, because I think that Corey Heim and Connor Zilisch, because they will be in A equipment, and the reason I say will be, Connor Zilisch is highly favored to take over for Alex Bowman after next season in the number 48 Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet. That's the hot rumor, and there are some that think that's a done deal. So if you put them in basically equal equipment, Connor Zilisch and Car 48, assuming that happens, and Corey Heim, I'm taking whatever money you give me, and I'm dividing it in half and putting it both, because I think they will both be trading wins and championships, and doing more so than Carson Hocevar, giving the teams that Heim and Zilisch will be on. So
Okay,
sorry for the cop-out answer, but
he
they're
cheated.
about the same.
He cheated.
I did.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, and I'm glad you said that, because I'm not ready to give up on Connor Zilisch. I think Trackhouse isn't in the best position right now, and you're right. In 2028, he could very much be in that 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports, which we know is high-level equipment, and I think he'd be very successful if he does that. Hocevar, I'm interested to see how Trackhouse continues to evolve, right? This is a program that only a couple years ago was bringing up the rear of the field as they were getting rolling, kind of during the COVID season around then.
Spire Motorsports.
Spire Motorsports, my bad. But they're getting better year by year. He's fifth in the points right now, which is incredible considering, how that team stacks up, resource-wise to some of the other powerhouses. I'm interested to see how they continue to grow. He seems like he's going to be at Spire for the long term, which is a great guy to build their organization around. Will he win as many races as the Heims and Ziliches of the world in A-plus equipment? Probably not, but he is going to be a guy that's going to be up there in the mix quite a bit if he continues on the path that he's on right now.
Yeah, and I think that Zilisch, too, if I had to give an edge, so Corey Heim is just a little bit older, and what they're doing with him is they're basically putting him in an incubator and having him really focus on these races in a part-time schedule and input a ton of data. I think that Connor Zilisch has more raw talent, kind of in the vein of Kyle Larson, and also Zilisch, with his road racing background, has the ability to be a top driver at multiple tracks as we speak, right? Now, Corey Heim won his first race at a road course, so, that foils that argument. So if I had to pick, you put a gun to my head, I say Connor Zilisch simply for the age and the road courses, because he's a little bit younger.
Let's go to a few things here as we come down the stretch. Well, I say we hit the back stretch. I was leading into this at the end of last break. Your expectations. So we get the week off. My brain was fried. I thought we were making picks this week. It's been a long week for me.
You get a breather.
We all win.
They get a breather. I always talk about this. The NASCAR schedule is absolutely ridiculous. Just the fact that, with golf, they can take weeks off, right? They can take weeks off. And you don't do anything. With NASCAR, you really start in February and you go all the way through the end of October into November. But as we come down the stretch here, who's hot, who's not, who makes a run, who falls apart?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to know. The Toyotas are locked in right now, and Hendrick Motorsports is in a slump where, which is another top flight, like the New York Yankees and NASCAR type team. And Hendrick Motorsports has not performed well as far as their finishes, although it has speed. All right, I think they are fast, and I think when the playoffs come, you're going to see them light up. The team that's come to life, given that Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano won back-to-back races at Echo Park Speedway and in North Wilkesboro, has got to be Team Penske. They have been asleep. The Fords have been the team that's been behind most of the year, or the manufacturer that's been behind. So I think Penske's starting to come to life, and I think Hendrick is about to fall out. The question is, will either of them come to life enough to outrun enough Toyotas to win the championship? I think Denny Hamlin has the field by his tail right now. to be him versus the field. And frankly, that's how it should be. Hamlin versus the world is the best kind of entertainment.
And for perspective, as we are bringing the chase back this year and all the simulations they ran in the offseason about how this would shake out, the idea, because you're seeded based on where you finish in the regular season standings by point differential, starting with the leader getting a 25-point lead over second place. Ideally, you want to be somewhere between like third and fifth when the chase starts to give yourself a real good chance to win the championship. So as you mentioned, with Hendrick Motorsports having some bad luck here as of late, you look at Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, they're outside the top 5 right now. Can they do enough to get themselves in the next couple races to put one, if not both of them, in position to make a serious run for the title? Or is it going to be one of those outside looking in type of things? Logano, who again is surging right now, he's pretty far back in 13th. He's got a lot of ground to make up. I don't know if he's going to do enough to make himself a championship contender, but I do think he can make a lot of noise in the chase alongside Ryan Blaney, who is third in points right now.
And I want to point out, too, with Logano or anybody, William Byron is further back, I think 12th in points. I don't have him in front of me as we speak. Here's the deal. If Joey Logano's surging based on the last couple of weeks, Joey Logano, if he enters the playoffs 13th, means he has almost no mulligans, okay? Whereas somebody in the top 5, they may have a race or two where they can really, crap the bed, so to speak, all right? If Joey Logano enters these playoffs and does what we've seen him do in even numbered years in the playoffs in 2018, 2022, 2024, and even 2020, in the middle of all that, and there's this whole meme about Logano in even number years, that 13th place won't matter, because if he gains enough position and points, he can make up 80 or 100 points quickly. We saw Denny Hamlin just do it on Tyler Reddick. The thing is it's 13th place and you're trying to get over 12 drivers, and they're all going to be on kill. So who actually has to use their mulligans, or who uses too many and ends up, to put it back in your golf parlance, in the water? Okay, we won't know, because they're all performing very similarly.
Yeah, I'll have to enlighten you, Bill, on even year Logano, because it's very similar to even year Beamer.
Okay.
Doug, enjoy the off weekend, man, and we'll preview Iowa next week.
That's a great, even year Beamer. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I look forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, appreciate it as always. Doug Turnbull there at the Performance Racing Network, and we'll come back, wrap up hour number 2 here on the Halftime Show on the Game.
I'm actually. So, thank you to Doug Turnbull for joining us as he does each and every week, off week for the drivers, off week for the boys. Be back next week from Iowa.
Iowa, that's correct.
Okay. I did know that.
Starting the USA Sports portion of the calendar.
Okay. All right. So back from Iowa next week. And again, our NASCAR Survivor Challenge. It's been a lot of fun. I've got 53 points. You've got 52.
Yep.
And Doug has 51.
We're neck and neck.
So a fantastic season so far.
Unfortunately, Corey Himes not been available to pick because he's not a full-time driver.
There you go. All right. So, all right. 803-404-6100. So yesterday, day before, I don't know, saw it last night. Article comes out. Paul Feinbaum is really the voice of the SEC. He's a homer.
Yep.
I don't watch him for, like, intricate breakdown. I watch him for humor, or I listen to him for humor. I watch him because he does do some good interviews. He's at his best at SEC Media Day when he can get guys on set and talk to them. But I'm not watching Paul, especially for X's and O's aspect of things.
Well, his show is the Jerry Springer show of college football.
I can get on board with that.
You listen in for guys like Legend and, all the characters that he has.
And also right now he's on I guess he figures he's got Clemson down.
Oh, he is all over Clemson.
Like, he is just shredding Clemson to pieces right now and taking any and every shot at Dabo.
Stuck on stupid.
I gotta admit, if Dabo wins, I hope Dabo personally fires back at Paul Feinbaum. If they can get back to players, I would love to see a true Feinbaum Dabo. Shoot, I'd love to see a wrestling. You talk about a little wrestling match or some of that nature, a challenge. Loser leaves college football kind of match. But Feinbaum's the voice of the SEC.
Yep.
He's going to pull for the SEC. He's going to represent the SEC. When the SEC hadn't won 3 titles in 3 years, he's still going to tell you that the SEC is the best conference. With that being said, apparently he upset Ray Tanner and the university so much in 2013, he about didn't get this gig. He about didn't get this job. This was an interesting Yahoo article that I didn't realize, and there's a little bit of he said, she said going on right now.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this story until you sent it to me. But, yeah, because the SC Network didn't launch until 2014.
Right.
But he was kind of, and this happens a lot, where you'll kind of be in like a weird, like year window. Because I think they signed him in 2012 or 2013. No network, but they were kind of popping him in and out of various ESPN things. In 2013, he was on Game Day for a little bit, which I don't even remember, but sure. Various ESPN shows and all that kind of stuff. So he had a presence, he had a voice. But yeah, his direct sources from inside the Carolina football program almost cost him the SEC Network gig before it started.
So apparently, this is according to Feinbaum on a podcast. This isn't like made up. So this is Feinbaum actually talking about it. It's a Yahoo Sports article. According to him, he spoke with Steve Spurrier late in the 2013 season about Jadeveon Clowney. And according to Feinbaum, it was Spurrier who made direct comments that he was fed up with Clowney, that Clowney wouldn't do anything. He didn't practice. He didn't work out. He didn't do anything, and he was one of the worst players that Spurrier had ever coached, and he didn't know how much longer he would keep Clowney on the team, even threatening so far as to kick him off. Feinbaum, if I read this correctly, then went on ESPN Game Day. This, as you mentioned, he was regular. As a matter of fact, at that time, ESPN Game Day's producer wanted to make Feinbaum a permanent piece of the panel, like a fixture.
Like on the desk.
Yes, on the desk.
Yeah.
Like they've made Saban and Herb Street and everybody else. And the SEC Network, knowing that they were going to put him on SEC Nation, blocked it and said, no, you can use him occasionally, but we're going to use him starting in 2014. Feinbaum went on Game Day and repeated exactly that. If I read this correctly, he didn't say it came directly from the coach.
Right.
He just said it came from with it that this would do. Ray Tanner got wind or saw it or got wind of it and basically called and just went off. So if everybody's like, well, Ray Tanner wouldn't do anything, Ray Tanner apparently just absolutely exploded on ESPN on the publicity side of things. And anyway, Tanner said the guy Feinbaum is a disgrace and he shouldn't be on the SEC network. Apparently, they were able to soothe it out, but there was a lot of people involved, the president and everything, and ESPN was apparently very close to firing him.
Could you see Spurrier making that phone call and ranting to Feinbaum about his real raw thoughts on Clowney?
I don't know how close Spurrier and Feinbaum were.
I mean,
can I see Spurrier making that call? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
so Feinbaum.
But Feinbaum covered the league for decades, so I imagine they had some kind of relationship.
Some. I don't know. I don't know. But according to him, it was Spurrier who told him all of that, and then Ray Tanner about got him fired. Yeah, he made it, and he's the voice, and the SEC is the greatest. It is 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Dare. Thank you again to Doug Turnbull in the previous hour for joining us. I've been talking a little bit about Big Ten Media Day. We'll get back into that. Some of the things said. We will also talk about some things Josh Pate said as it pertains to South Carolina and striking while the iron is hot, and it brought up some thoughts in my mind. But first, I have an announcement I have to make.
Okay.
I have not told anybody this. This will be my final segment with 107.5. I have not told anybody this, but I really just found out in the break. I got a phone call. The Atlanta Falcons are in need of a quarterback. I couldn't look at you in the face to watch your reaction.
I was like, okay, news to me.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was going to break out laughing.
All right.
I couldn't look at you. No.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, I thought, great. It's probably good news. But, yeah. In all honesty, you're a Falcons fan, and Tua goes there. Mm-hmm.
Looking around, by the way, today, now, all officially, and that, by the way, that was a joke. I'm not a 44-year-old with
hey,
kidney
you had
problems.
me for a second. I was like, wait a minute.
I know. I couldn't look at you. I wanted to look at your face. I'm going to have to go back
You didn't even take a phone call. What did I miss?
I'm going to have to go watch the live stream again to see, because I couldn't look at you. I had to look down. No, I obviously, the reason I bring it up today, now all 32 teams are in training camp, and a week from tomorrow we get the Hall of Fame game, so we get football. But I did see it go across, and Tua's got a back injury, and I'm like, good Lord. I mean, I hate to say it for Tua, because I don't know where it went wrong. I don't know if, like, the hip injury in college just kind of brought all this about. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there was so many. We talk about, like, Lattimore and the thoughts for him and going to the pros. Tua's just never been right since then. He gets all the concussions in Miami, and now he's got what they're calling a minor back injury. But, Tyler, you know this. As a player in the NFL, and back injuries, kind of like we talked with Dylan Stewart, once you have them, it don't really go away.
Well, and the thing was, because Michael Penix suffered his injury last year.
Right.
So
he hasn't been medically cleared.
He hasn't been medically cleared. You brought in Tua as like, all right, here's going to be our guy until we can kind of figure out what's going on with Penix. And the hope was both those guys would be ready by the start of training camp to compete for the spot. Now, neither one of them are able to compete. Yeah. They had to go out and sign Cooper Rush this morning, just have another quarterback in camp because your top two guys aren't available. And Tua's on just like a $1.2 million deal, kind of a one-year thing to try and bridge the gap, saying, okay, you're either going to stick with Michael Penix Jr. or you're going to be drafting another quarterback in 2027, because it's getting to a critical point now, because this will be Penix's third year in the league. He's been injured a lot. He was injured a lot in college as well. And I don't know if you can leverage the future on him or not.
The Raiders announced that at least going into this week that Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter, that he's earned it. Was this one of the franchises, not the Raiders, but the Falcons, bigger mistakes in having Kirk Cousins and making that pick when they did?
Yeah.
Kind of like, I mean, it looks like it's worked out for the Packers when they drafted Jordan Love in the first round to succeed Aaron Rodgers. It looks like it worked out. This didn't. This hasn't. And now you look back, if you'd have kept Kirk Cousins, I forget the exact number on the deal. It was
a lot.
Ridiculously high. Are the Falcons in a better spot? Because I think you're right. It is a strong quarterback class.
Sure.
What do we think? If you're going to draft a quarterback, this might be the year to do it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought. Now, again, we thought this past year's quarterback class was going to be strong, and then the season played out, and it didn't end up, being the case. So you just never know, what's going to be like by the time the draft rolls around. But yeah, for reference, they signed Cousins to the deal in the offseason and then drafted Michael Penix Jr. without telling Kirk Cousins about it. Now, also, Kirk Cousins maybe didn't quite lead on how injured he was coming off of his stint, with the Vikings prior to coming to Atlanta. So it's been kind of a mess at the quarterback situation. Again, you move on from him. He goes out to the Raiders. You think you're getting what is not a elite quarterback option, but a decent one into it to, again, kind of bridge the gaps. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do with Michael Penix Jr., but now neither one of those guys are healthy enough to start training camp. So, yeah, you're in a worse situation right now than if you would have held on to Kirk Cousins. Thankfully, the Raiders were able to take him off your hand, and I forget how the money situation works out there. By the way, smart of him to be the first starter there while Fernando Mendoza is figuring things out. He'll eventually get to start this year at some point, but nothing wrong with having the veteran kind of start the season for a game or two before you feel like you're ready to turn it over to Fernando Mendoza. But, yeah, the Falcons quarterback situation is just a giant mess right now, unfortunately. And, look, I have no expectations for this year. We'll see what Stefanski can do. Obviously, he was probably held down a lot by being the coach of the Browns, which can only get you so far. But, yeah, I don't have high hopes for what this season's going to be.
Yeah, to go back, yeah, and I was joking. Again, I'm not, I'm as long as the corporate doesn't take that to be some kind of verbal contract, I'll be here for the next segment and the next several as long as they'll have me. So I was joking. But, yeah, I saw that because they did sign Cooper Rush this morning. But Michael Penix Jr. is still weeks away from clearance. You look at his injury history now with the concussions, and now, as we kind of mentioned, and it's something we kind of circle back to with Dylan Stewart, you get these back injuries, and obviously, especially in football, you're going to get hit, and who knows what it takes to flare up. This is just being labeled as minor to dealing with a flare-up of some back stiffness and currently unable to participate in practice. But that did, as of this morning, that did leave the Falcons with one quarterback, something called Jack Strand, was going to run the quarterback again. They've signed Cooper Rush. So a little bit of NFL news and notes. And, yes, again, yesterday, the Raiders coming out, I think it was yesterday, but yesterday I saw it, the Raiders coming out and saying that Kirk Cousins will go into camp as a starter. And I'm with you. I think you got to be, with these young quarterbacks, you got to be so careful into not just throwing them down, especially on those franchises like the Raiders, who has some talent, who has some guys, but they're not ready to I think support a rookie quarterback in week one.
Yeah, and I'm always a firm believer, unless you're just in a no-win situation here where you have no other options, of letting a guy sit for at least a short period of time to get up to speed of the NFL game. And again, Kirk Cousins has been a veteran. He's been in the league for over a decade. Are you going to ride him for an entire year? Probably not. But if he started the first 4 games while Fernando Mendoza got comfortable, that's totally fine. Then you turn it over to Mendoza. Hopefully confidence is high and he can take off running there. But unless you absolutely have to, I don't like throwing a rookie quarterback to the Wolves in week number 1. So I like that Clint Kubiak and the Raiders are playing this the way that they are.
I do too. So again, a week from tomorrow, we'll get the Panthers and the Cardinals in the Hall of Fame game. And again, if you're just kind of watching to watch, which JC and I talked a little bit about yesterday, I like watching. I'm growing more accustomed to watching these preseason games because you see college players that like you recognize, but they're not studs. So, and no offense to him, but also for Arizona, good chance you'll see some Jalen Brooks.
Yeah.
Who's trying to make that team. He's on that roster. Jordan Birch. I don't really know his true role just yet on that team, but as he enters year 2, he's on that roster. The Panthers have Bam Martin Scott, who, again, is constantly, feels like he's a big part of it, but constantly fighting for a roster spot there. So, that's why I'll kind of watch that, not because I want to see Bryce Young or Xavier Legette or, especially not Jacoby Brissett for the Cardinals, but we'll see.
He did finally stop holding out, by the way.
Jacoby Brissett's up there with, like, all-time greatest backup quarterbacks. He's got some run, made a whole lot of money, never saw this coming.
Guys like him and Ryan Fitzpatrick are so interesting to me because no matter what team they're on, they always find a way. There's always an injury. There's always something that happens where those guys find their way onto the field. And, I mean, they got to be chasing Cade McCown for most teams ever played for.
Yes.
Luke McCown, whichever one it is that's played for a bunch of teams.
I think it's Josh
McCown. Yeah, there's a bunch of McCown brothers. Josh McCown, who I think has the most starts for any quarterback on multiple teams in NFL history. If not, he's close to it. But Brissett's up there for sure.
One Panthers note from this morning's practice, rookie wide receiver Chris Brazzell, a third-round selection, injured his left knee in practice, a non-contact injury. He is undergoing testing, and we'll see what happens with him. But he was a third-round pick out of Tennessee by the Panthers, and he is now out. He was out with soreness of the knee, but he suffered a non-contact injury on Wednesday this morning, and we'll miss a little bit of NFL news and notes there. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. Also, Braves back in action. Are we watching? Is it a doubleheader today?
Yeah, so they last night rained out, so doubleheader. They are through 4 right now with no score. AJ Smith-Shawver on the mound for the Braves. So again, they'd won 7 of their first 10 coming off the All-Star break, lost on Monday night, and are trying to even the series today. They'll play Game 3 at their regular time coming up later on tonight. But no score, top of the 5th.
And the Phillies lost last night.
They did.
What does that mean? That means the Braves are now back up 6 games.
That's right. They're managing the gap.
They've come exploding out of the gate, at least in the best possible way, and the Phillies are staggering just a little bit. And the Marlins, remember when we thought, the Marlins had cut it? I think, didn't the Marlins cut it to about 3.5 in mid-June? They were kind of there?
They were, I think, at one point tied with the Phillies.
Yeah.
Just like at 3.5, 4 games back right before the All-Star break, because they went on a crazy run of a bunch of wins in a row, or like 10 out of 12, something like that. Well, then they hit the skids coming out of the All-Star break. They have won the past couple, including last night against the Phillies.
Well, they won the last two.
But yeah, the good equity they had built, they undid it with that long losing streak.
Yeah, and then kind of the news to keep an eye on before the trade line is Detroit and Tyreek Skubal, who recorded his 1,000th strikeout. And obviously, that's a guy, I would hope he stays in Detroit, but I just hope he doesn't. And look, I like the Yankees, but I hope, they're talking about the Yankees picking up, I think it's Mason Miller from the Padres to close out the 9th. We'll see with the trade deadline coming up what some teams try and do, and if he moves and finds a more permanent setting.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, would he sign a deal for the rest of this year to go be with a contender to win the entire thing?
Yeah.
Does he sign a long-term deal for multiple years where he kind of stays in one place? Because if you're like the Braves, who I don't think are in the Tyreek Skubal sweepstakes here, if he could agree to a deal with you to close out the season, that'd be great. That would help you out a lot. I don't know if he's going to do that or not, but a lot of teams like the Braves did in 2021, where you're just trying to acquire a bunch of talent for the next couple months to get you to the end of the year to hopefully win a championship, as opposed to signing a bunch of guys for long-term deals. It's more of kind of bringing in mercenaries to close out the year, which the Braves do need some of from pitching and hitting.
By the way, currently, Marlins and Phillies are in the bottom of the 7th, and that game is 6-6. So just something to keep an eye on as we keep an eye on the NL East race. 803-404-6100. Josh Pate, who has made quite the name for himself, says now is the time for South Carolina to strike. Strike while the iron is hot. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for well over 30 years, being there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for you, your family, your business, whatever it may require. Because let's be honest, you don't think about your roof. Don't even try and pretend like, oh, yeah, Gunner, I was thinking about it right now. I was worried about it. No, you weren't. Mid-State Roofing, however, is. That's what makes them the leader in the business, being ready to help you at the drop of a dime, whether it's midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever it may be. If you give Mid-State Roofing a phone call, they are there to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 803-356-1919. Again, it's 803-356-1919. You know what Mid-State Roofing says. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek.
And that's why it's so important. 2 years ago when South Carolina was in position, just a couple of close losses, and they barely miss out on the playoffs. If Ohio State has that happen to them, they'll just be right back there next year. South Carolina can't guarantee themselves that every year, and that's why it's so important to strike when you can, because Shane almost had a season 2 years ago that would have bought him virtually a lifetime of equity in Columbia, and instead it almost doesn't count to a lot of people. And you know what you get paid, and you know how inflated the expectations are going to be because of that. And you're really close to Shane. I know that. Shane Beamer, a huge friend of this program. Yeah,
love it.
How about the shout-outs, man? How about that? It's been great. But it doesn't change the fact that he's got to get the job done.
What was that? That was him with whom?
That was on that SEC podcast with SEC Mike and cousin Shane. They were set up kind of adjacent to us at Media Days last week.
All right, got it.
So where the joke about Shane comes in at the end.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, that's what I was asking. You know, I hadn't thought about it from this standpoint. And Pate makes a great point about striking while the iron is hot. And I think one of the criticisms of Shane Beamer, because I'll be honest, if I was to grade his tenure, I'd give it a B, which sounds a little ridiculous. I give him a lot more credit for year one than most.
Sure, that's fair.
That's why it's a B and not a C.
He drastically exceeded expectations.
Right. That's why it's a B and not a C, because you've had 2 losing and 2 winning. But I give it a B. And again, that's all because of year one bumps it up and getting there with 4 starting quarterbacks and winning the ball game and everything you did that year. But the following year, Tyler, you had a pretty veteran team, a pretty good team. Obviously, you had Xavier Legette doing out of otherworldly stuff. You had Spencer Rattler, and quite frankly, you kind of blew it. You know, you blew the Florida game. You got blown out by Missouri and Como. That was a weird game. Remember, 34-12. At Texas A&M wasn't really a game. They were 2-6. It was 30-17. You know, it was really, that was a year that, again, 5-7. It's not like I'm saying they should have been 9-3.
Sure.
But quite frankly, you shouldn't have been. And again, it was also, you lose to Tennessee on the road, but you got blown out in that game.
Yeah, well, and the unfortunate thing is the 2 years that have been hyped the most have been the 2 biggest disappointments, right? Because you come off of the end of the 22 season with big upsets, and hey, guess what? You're getting Spencer Rattler back. You were getting Juice Wells back at that point in time. We're going to see what Legette was going to do. A lot of guys on defense returning. A lot of reason to be excited. Go out there and go 5-7. Now, they had injuries on the offensive line. That certainly didn't help. But then, hey, 24 is an amazing year. You get a lot of those guys back, too. You're replacing a lot on defense. But optimism for some of the young guys there that are coming into the starting roles. And you go 4-8. And that's the unfortunate part, because you're looking at this and saying, okay, let's just say hypothetically Carolina went 4-8 again this year, right? And it's not because any major player got hurt. It's just because you weren't good enough to win more than 4 games. You say, man, in 3 years with Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor, and Lenore Sellers, you had 1 winning season out of that. Not to mention Eamon Warrior, the guys that got drafted off the 24 team. Like, you didn't capitalize when you had a lot of really good talent on your team. And at that point in time, we'd probably be talking about a new head coach coming in. And here's the thing, because we talk about those guys returning, talk about what they brought in the portal, talk about the personnel changes that they've had. You can make an argument. Maybe the 24 team overall was a little bit more talented. This is one of the best rosters Beamer's had going into a year. And if you can't get a lot out of this year, you're losing so many guys to the draft next year, not to mention what you might lose to the portal. I've used the phrase hard reset a lot. And next year's going to be a hard reset.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have Sellers. You're not going to have Harbor. You're not going to have Stewart.
We assume.
You're going to lose a lot of other guys to the draft or to the portal or whatever, and you're kind of starting over in a lot of ways. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go out and get talent in the portal, but the guys that you know are high-level contributors likely won't be here next year. So you have to make the most of them while you have them on campus, and this is the last year to do that.
Yeah, you're exactly right about next year. You're exactly right about this year. And, again, you know, it is one of those things where – you know, even if you go 6-6 last year and you get to a bowl game, that's not great. It's not a reason to be thrilled or excited. But okay, at least you did that. 4-8's embarrassingly bad.
Yes,
like embarrassingly bad. Again, I will say you talk about 5 and here's the difference though, and this is kind of what we talk about in the 5 and 7 year. You got beat by 14 by North Carolina, and really you blew that game because what it was. I think they were leading at halftime, or it was a 3-point game.
It was close,
Charlotte,
something like that.
You're leading. You're beating Georgia at halftime. You blow that one. Then you proceed to get thumped. Tennessee gets you by 3 touchdowns. Missouri gets you by 22 points. A&M gets you by 13. Clemson gets you 16-7 and win a game where you don't give up an offensive touchdown.
Yep.
But you lose those games. And again, I just rattled those off. There was the Florida game by 2 points. But of those losses.
Well, you blew that one. You had that one.
The Florida game, yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't stop them on 4th down.
Yeah, but of those 7 losses, 5 of those are by double digits. And a couple of them are by 3 touchdowns. Last year, you look at it, and it's not good, and this is not an excuse, but the point being is last year, in those losses, again, aside from Vanderbilt, which, if you want to, you can make the excuse, Sellers went down, it's a game when Sellers is injured, but Missouri, you've got a great chance to win, and Sellers throws for 300 yards. LSU, I don't know if I ever felt like they had a great chance to win, but they're there.
Yeah.
They're down a touchdown going into the 4th quarter. Oklahoma, you were down 10 going into the 4th quarter. Alabama, you're up with 10 minutes to go. Ole Miss, you're down down 6 going into the 4th quarter. There's that other game out in College Station that we all now try to block out. And even the Clemson game, like you said, Sellers gets the ball with 5 minutes to go, down a score, and you're kind of like, well, it's hero time. If Lenore Sellers wants to etch his name into history a little bit more, now's when you can do it.
And you blinked and it was over.
And he throws a pick. So, there was a difference there between last year and the 5 and 7 season. But the point being is, it does feel like Shane Beamer should have struck a little bit more in 2023 and definitely should have struck more last year. And now you come to this year, and you're right. You got all these guys, and I'm all I'm saying is 7 and 5 and 6 and 6 probably keeps his job. I'm not saying it's acceptable. 8 and 4 to me, and nothing less is acceptable. Nothing less than 8 and 4 is like, yeah, you should be upset. I will say I just think the department, the AD, keeps him at 6 and 6 or 7 and 5.
Yeah. Well, as we talked about, it also depends on, what are those
how you got to 7
5 losses or 6 losses look like? Is it by 1 point? Is it in overtime? Are you getting blown out by 3 and 4 touchdowns? That factors into the conversation. But yeah, I think, and look, we'll have more time as the season gets closer to give our schedule predictions. But I think this team is capable of being an 8 to 9-ish win team if they play at their absolute best, given the schedule that they have. But that's no guarantee, right? Because we would have thought last year's team was capable of doing that, and they didn't. So we'll see. Certainly those games early in the season against Mississippi State, Kentucky, and stuff like that really set the tone for what you're going to be, and we're going to learn real quick just how competitive this team is for the tougher games coming ahead. But yeah, as we've said several thousand times this offseason, this is make or break.
You mentioned it in terms of talent on the team. Obviously, if we were to go this century, going back to 2000, so date back a year, but if you were to go back, I would say this is one of the 5, 6 best rosters South Carolina has had. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the years, the Spurrier run, 3 or 4 of those were really good. Preston Thorne will be the first to tell you the 2002 team, the 2002 team that was 5 and 2 that lost to Georgia on the Pollock strip sack and all that. He'll be the first to tell you that might have been the most talented of that Lou Holtz run, but mentally they weren't as good as the 2000 and 2001 team.
Well, and I think it goes without saying that the 2024 team was Beamer's most talented after the fact, and we learned, hey, half your defense is going to get drafted in the NFL. Sellers is special and all that, but going into the year, we didn't know. Right, Sellers was unproven. You had a bunch of guys in the transfer portal that were fine at the previous stops, but we didn't see a Nagurski winner in Kennard or a mid-round draft pick in Demetrius Knight. Hindsight is 2020. I think we feel better going into this season with what we have than what you had 2 years ago. Doesn't guarantee they're going to be better, but I feel like at this point in the summer in 26, we feel better than we did in this point in the summer in 24.
I think it's just trepidation. It's just trepidation because you're right. You got y'all, we, us, me, you. We all got let down last year. We got let down. Again, there's no 6 and 6. You really can't explain your way out of either. But 4 and 8, there's simply no excuse to go 1 and 7 in the SEC and to have some of those games. I look directly at A&M because honestly, there's no reason for blowing the A&M and the Alabama game.
Right.
And that puts you at 6-6. And it's not like that's better. You go to who knows where you go because of the way the bowl situation is now. But that doesn't make it better. But the truth be told is, again, there's no explanation. So you're right. And everybody knows it's a big year, and everybody knows that there's a lot riding on it for the career of Shane Beamer. 803-404-6100. Real quick, one other NFL note. This just coming across. Former Clemson player Brian Breesy says faces possible season-ending ACL tear in camp. So just speaking of another in-state player, unfortunate news for Breesy, who was, right, according to this article, obviously for former first-round pick and rising star whose fifth-year option was recently exercised. So we'll see what happens for the Saints, but unfortunate for him and hope a good recovery for Brian Breesy. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in this afternoon. We'll come back and get back into some of those Big Ten comments that were made yesterday from a couple different coaches. It's the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market, the one and only place to visit when you're ready for a great meal. Why? Because whether it's steak, chicken, pork, fish, you know what? They even have great breakfast biscuits, Southern-style breakfast biscuits that I purchased for the Gunner family breakfast. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're looking for, Old Timey Meat Market has it, and they do it with a smile, and they do it with a friendly attitude about them. That's why I love their, yes, a lot of meat markets out of there. A lot of places with great cuts of steak, with great cuts of chicken, with all this great food. But you know what? At Old Timey Meat Market, they treat you like a family member. The moment you walk in the door, they know me, they know Ansley and Austin. I could send Ansley and Austin in by themselves, and they would help them out. They are a great family to work with, talking about Old Timey Meat Market, and that's why I love going to the Lexington store. You can stop by one of the other two locations, St. Andrews Road, Nerma, or the South Congaree store, and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
they shift with Wright moving to the right side. Pitch back to George Rogers. Over right tackle, out over the 20, 25, out to the 28-yard line he goes. Bubba Brown was there defensively. Rogers gets the pitch back, comes out over the 35, down he goes at the 37-yard line, and George Rogers, the sophomore out of Duluth, Georgia, now Wright swings out to the right side in a split backfield. Rogers gets the call. He's up over the 40, 45, and out to the 48-yard line. Bubba 20, 2nd and 1, takes out, rides it off to the first man through. That is Rogers. He's across the 15 to the 13-yard line. Hit there by Bubba Brown, and Randy Scott to go South Carolina. Split backfield behind Harper. Here is the ride off to Rogers. Left tackle. He's inside the 5 to the 2-yard line. They split in the backfield now. Harper takes out, rides it off. First man through, George Rogers. Big hole. He's across the midfield stripe into Tiger territory at the 40, 35, and all the way down to the 30-yard line. And that is why George Rogers is the great running back that he is. He has the strength and he has the quickness. At that time, he burst over the right side and carried into the Tiger 31 before he was pulled down.
There you go. Happy George Rogers Day. 38 days away from the start of the college football season. You had a trivia question earlier.
I did, yes. To wrap up his college career and route to winning the 1980 Heisman Trophy, how many consecutive 100-yard games did George Rogers have? I think you know this.
Yeah, we've answered it a couple times. 22.
Yes, 22, which that is insane.
One of the best, maybe the best. I would never argue with anybody who says George Rogers is the best to ever come through the university. Obviously, the trophy to prove it.
Off of that, because I posed the question to Wes and Chris, and Terry and I were talking about this earlier, I liken him winning the Heisman Trophy in 1980 at South Carolina to like an RG3 at Baylor in 2011.
Okay.
Because those are two programs that up to that point hadn't really done a whole lot.
All right.
Carolina had a ACC title in 1969. They made some bowl appearances, but obviously hadn't won one yet. Overall, it was a program that hadn't really accomplished a whole lot, and then suddenly has the Heisman Trophy winner. Baylor kind of in a similar way. I think they'd only had one double-digit win season prior to RG3 winning the Heisman back in 2011, because most of the time the guys that win the Heisman Trophy are from higher-profile programs or programs that have at least had high-level success, like Colorado won a national championship back in the 1990s, where Travis Hunter won the Heisman Trophy a couple years ago. It is rarer to have a program without a ton of history have a Heisman Trophy winner. Now, Indiana obviously had one last year with Mendoza en route to the national championship, but prior to that, they also had not had a ton of history to speak of.
Yeah, did Colorado, did Rashawn Salam win a Heisman? Am I thinking correctly?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because I believe Mendoza was the only one. Now, Salam may have been a finalist.
No, for Colorado.
Oh, for Colorado. No, I don't think so.
I'd have to go back and look. For some reason, I would have bet he did, but I don't quite remember if Rashawn Salam won back in the 90s, so forth and so on. 803-404-6100. Big Ten Media Day, kind of wrapping up talking season for everybody. And yesterday, Captain Dave, this is going to be clip number 8. Brett Bielema. Now, here's the thing about Bielema.
Shalom did win in 94.
There we go. Look at that memory coming through for me. Can't remember years, but I can remember that. Here's the thing about Brett Bielema. In the Big Ten, Brett Bielema is 60-41. Not bad. He's 23-22 at Illinois. He did have a 6-3 2 years ago. He was 5-4 last year. But in the Big Ten, he is 60-41. In the SEC, at Arkansas, after 5 years, 11-29. I kind of like Brett Bielema. I like the fire. I like the passion. I like the intensity. Maybe not the best idea to start taking shots, though, when your time in the conference goes 11-21. But here's Brett Bielema yesterday discussing this debate on 24 versus 16 versus 12, so forth and so on, and his thoughts on the SEC currently kind of going against everybody else.
They have, opinions, and obviously they're going to draw the Big Ten, SEC, and all that goes around about that. But to sit in a room with both of those guys, I think with Tony and the vision and experience that he has, and to be in the room where Sankey, I know he's got to protect the SEC, and they kind of want to live in 2005 forever. But I think the forward thinking of where we are in college football is an awesome thing. So,
by the way, the SEC was dominating 2005, but it wasn't really until later that it really took off.
Well, that was right before, because that Florida title in 06, LSU in 07, Florida in 08, that was the beginning of the run for the SEC. But I take his comments yesterday more in line with talking about the SEC not wanting to evolve by trying to stay at 12 teams or 16, where, again, I look at a guy like Bielema, and expectations will change if we go to 24. But for the time being, he knows a 24-team playoff is something that's accessible to him almost every single year. If he can win 8 games in the Big Ten, he's got a good shot at being in the 24-team college football playoff. So I think he's looking at this, as many coaches do, from a, hey, what can benefit me? Because right now the SEC digging its heels in is making it harder for him to get a team to the playoff at 12 or 16 or whatever it may be, where, again, there's incentives and bonuses and all that kind of stuff that would come with him making an expanded playoff if it does come to that.
Looking back real quick on Bielema, he would have – I just clicked off of it. So he definitely would have made a college football playoff. He's in year 5 at Illinois. He definitely would have made a playoff last year and in 2024. He was – I'm looking to see what their record was. They finished 8-5. I'm looking to see where they were ranked in 2022, because 8-4 is about the cutoff. Last year 8-4. Iowa was 9-3. Last year, and they were, again, as I mentioned, the 23rd ranked team. James Madison was 24, but in 2022, Illinois in the final college football playoff ranking, that doesn't give it to me. I'm going to have to look up another way. Great, but I have to look and see, because you're right, Tyler. Let's just say 8-4, and he gets in. All of a sudden, he's got 3 college football playoff appearances in 5 years. He's a demigod.
Oh, sure.
In Champaign.
Yeah, no, that would keep him there forever, seemingly. So I think that's more of a strategic play. And same thing like with Eli Drinkwitz when he was talking about making like a 40-team playoff or whatever, last year, whenever that was. Like, they're saying that because that benefits them more. Like, look, Georgia and Texas don't need the playoff to be 30 teams because they're good enough to make it in at 4, 8, 12, whatever it may be on a year-in, year-out basis. But other coaches say, okay, well, I know I got a team that can realistically go about 8-4 every single year. Where does that number need to be to get me in every single year, which is where I think that answer comes from.
I forgot about this. I'm now looking at the 2022 rankings, the final rankings. So after the SEC, ACC, Big Ten championship game that determined the seeding. Now, this was 2022 was the second to last year of the college football playoff ranking, right? Of the 4-team playoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Still, if there was a 24-team ranking playoff in 2022, South Carolina's in at 19.
Yeah.
How do you view Shane Beamer's tenure now if I say, hey, 2 out of 5 years, yeah, he's got 2 losing years, but 2 out of 5 years, South Carolina made the college football playoff? Because just the wording of it.
Oh, yeah.
The wording, just the simple wording of it.
Sure. No, that builds a ton of equity for him. And, unlike, Pate said, that buys him a lifetime of equity. We're not going to go that far. But we're not talking about him going to this year on the hot seat, if that's the case. Saying, hey, don't forget, not all that long in the past, he had a playoff appearance or a couple playoff appearances. You look at it differently.
Yeah.
Because, again, Carolina.
Because of the way you word it.
Because of the way you word it, right? Even if you're getting eliminated in the first round, hey, he still made the playoff, which for Carolina, that's big.
Right. I'm trying to, without looking it up, I'm just trying to think about who they would have been matched up with if they had, say, gotten to the second round in the second turn. Just a turn of, a change of things if they get to the second round. Interesting. And, again, it's all in the wording of how we say it. 803-404-6100. Coming up at 3:15 today with Jay and Terry, South Carolina baseball coach Kevin Schnall will join us. I doubt they'll get as much fun out of it. It was a lot to draw the hot dog information out of him when I had him on.
Yeah, he's pretty straightforward, to say the least.
He's ready to talk. He's going to be ready to talk some baseball. But make sure you tune in for that. It's Kevin Schnall, 3:15 today on the postgame show with Jay and Terry. Come back. We'll wrap up the halftime show. When we return, it's the halftime show.
For being here. I mean what I say, you know.
Oh, thanks.
And, you know, you see stuff that's on the walls here when you walk in. There's a Goodfellas poster that I've had forever.
Really?
Yes.
Where'd you get it?
I got it at a charity auction.
Huh.
And it's on the wall. And you signed it. You signed it.
Rafi.
What do you mean? It's not on the wall. Okay, our stage manager coming. That's it. You've taken it off the wall.
Yeah, it's not my signature.
What do you mean it's not your signature?
This is not my signature, buddy.
Down there?
You got ripped off.
No, I did not.
You're
kidding me.
I don't do a frou-frou L like that, and I don't cross it.
So that is like not yours, because it's signed by you, De Niro, and Pesci, and I spent at least 4 figures on this thing.
Get out of here.
Yes.
You're a sucker.
It's better with the video, but that is the Rich Eisen show with Ray Liotta. And you got to watch the video a little bit to see the faces of it. But this is, Tyler, this is why I don't really care for autographs.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Liotta is literally doing an interview on the Rich Eisen show. Rich Eisen is so happy about this Goodfellas poster, about this signed Goodfellas poster. It's got Scorsese's autograph.
Oh yeah,
it's got De Niro.
That's great. That is hanging above like your couch in the man cave.
Right. It's got the signatures. It's got everybody. It's a great post, good size poster. As he mentioned it, it's right there as you walk in to the Rich Eisen studio, on display, signatures and everything. And you heard Eisen say, "I paid forfeit at a charity auction." And Ray Liotta's like, "No, I didn't. That ain't even close to my signature." And
That's crazy.
they actually break out something to try and break. And then it's not glass that's covered. It's like a plexi.
Yeah.
And he can't. But Ray's like, "We'll fix it. We'll get that one."
I was gonna say, I hope he asked it for him before he left.
Yes, but I've never been an autograph guy. I'm not an autograph guy, but yes, that is actually hilarious to me, and it's just like another of where we are in society with autographs just don't mean anything.
I got autographs as a kid. Nowadays, and again, working in sports media, you have to be careful anyway because we're often doing jobs when we're around these high-profile people. I value a photograph more, right? If I get a chance, if I meet somebody cool or special, I'd rather have a picture with them than like them scribbling on a piece of paper or a hat or something along those lines. Again, I've got some autographs in my collection, but I'd much more value, when we've had Cody Rhodes came in here, I got to interview Joey Logano and stuff like that. I'm always like, hey, let's grab a picture, A, for our social media to promote the thing, but B, like, that's my thing that I show people of, hey, look who I met, as opposed to, hey, here's a scribble on a hat that says I met that person.
Yeah, but I found that because, like I said, I've never, because of that, and it wasn't because of that clip, but I've just never been an autograph guy. And then it's a great clip because, again, Eisen's so happy. He's so proud to show Liotta, like, hey, we're big fans of the movie, and I spent all this money on this poster and your autograph, and it's got Scorsese and De Niro and Pesci. So now, as they go through that clip, Eisen's clearly shook, and he's like, is that De Niro's? And Liotta's like, well, it could be Bob's. Is that Pesci's? I don't know how Joe signs his name. Maybe. He's like, but if there's one fake scripture,
I was going to say,
signature.
If there's one fake autograph, your likelihood of the others being fake, it was probably all signed by the same person.
And you could just, the dejection in Eisen's, like, his demeanor and his voice does a good job kind of holding it together for something that obviously, again, he spent good money for.
At least in his situation, he's sitting there with Ray Liotta who can be like, I will sign it for you.